You ever walk into a place that should feel familiar, but doesn't? Like a childhood home that's been renovated. The walls are a different colour, the furniture's all modern, and there's a weird smell you just can't quite place. You know it's the same house, but the soul feels different. Well, that's what Diablo 3 feels like. It had the name, it had the monsters, and it had the loot, but it also had a weird, bouncy energy. A Diablo game, but made in a much more arcade style. Bright particle effects and a strange, modern art style. And all of it was delivered with Blizzard's usual polish, just not with Diablo's usual personality. It wasn't bad, it just wasn't that. It was different. It felt like it was made for a new audience instead of for those original diehard fans. Fans of the series had to wait 12 years between games, so it was completely fair enough that everyone was initially confused and thought they had accidentally installed Torchlight instead. Gone was that dread and that grime, that gnawing paranoia that everything you loved in this world was going to be eaten by hellish, devilish monsters. Instead, you were launching fireworks out of your fingertips, juggling cooldowns and nuking the undead with cartoonishly overpowered area of effect spells. It wasn't hell anymore, it was a circus and you were the headline act. And then Blizzard really drove it home with an always online requirement. That meant no offline solo play. Not even for people who just wanted to escape to their happy place for a quiet night of demon slaughter in their pajamas. Oh, and let's not forget the infamous Error 37. I'm Mythic Vic, I review and play older games, and we have some laughs along the way. Today we're talking about one of the most controversial sequels of all time, Diablo 3. And like I said in my last video, Diablo 3 often feels like the beginning of the end for an incredibly beloved franchise. And let's be honest, Blizzard's credibility as a whole. A game that's been called everything from a betrayal of a franchise to the most fun you can have clicking your mouse at 1000 RPM. And just maybe both are kind of true. You would think that the fact that most people could not play the game on launch would be the biggest controversy that Diablo 3 launch saw, but it was in fact the real money auction house. Blizzard, in what I can only describe as a moment of pure corporate delusion, decided to turn Diablo's legendary loot system into a literal economy. Want that one ring that will completely change your build? Well, don't go hunt for it, just buy it at auction. I hope you have your credit cards ready, everyone. Suddenly, loot wasn't as exciting. It was a transaction. And this broke the game's core loop. In Diablo, loot isn't just gear. It's the whole point of the series. Most of the time players put into a Diablo game isn't to experience the story, it's to grind for loot. And the fact that Blizzard decided to mess with that system just shows me just how out of touch they were at the time. Without the thrill of the drop, the desperate hope every corpse might cough up something incredible, the whole machine and what Diablo is known for grinds to a halt. And yet, despite all of those controversies, Diablo 3 is great. Like, legitimately great. With the help of the Reaper of Souls expansion, of course. The expansion was more than a band-aid, it was a full body transplant. The auction house, nuked, gone. Loot 2.0 was introduced. There was adventure modes, seasons, random rifts that would open up in the middle of nowhere. Pure bliss. Because under all of that baggage, under the neon blood splatter and the disastrous launch and the auction house drama, Blizzard had something that most ARPGs still struggle to get right. Combat that feels good. Really, really good. The moment-to-moment action in Diablo 3 is absurdly satisfying. Your character moves like a goddamn superhero. Spells are super responsive. Hits land. You can actually tell what enemies you are damaging, and enemies still explode into that loot confetti. That dopamine rush we all felt in the previous games is still there, but on steroids. Where Diablo 2 felt like you were constantly surviving, Diablo 3 feels like you are thriving. And that shift might have alienated the purists, but it opened the door for a whole new kind of power fantasy. It's not just the responsiveness that makes Diablo 3 feel more updated than the original 2, it's also the build diversity. Every class has multiple viable builds, and the legendary gear isn't just stat sticks, it can completely warp how you play. Don't get me wrong, a part of what makes Diablo 1 and 2 fantastic is that you are somewhat forced to stick to the builds you create. Diablo 2 allowed you to reset your stats easily one time, but after that you pretty much had to fully commit to your build or create a whole new character. Whereas in Diablo 3, I was constantly changing my playstyle. The main spells and perks I would have equipped would change pretty much every time I leveled up. And the loot further enhanced the fluidity of that playstyle. One thing they did remove, which I think was a huge mistake, was the inventory management. Gone is that medieval Tetris, and now things auto-stack in your bag. And you can now carry 10 times more than you could before. And because there's so much more loot now, rare drops, they just don't have the same feel as they once did. And because you can simply respawn right where you died, the threat of struggling to retrieve your old gear has also disappeared. In Blizzard's mind, they changed these type of features to bring Diablo 3 into a modern age. But they also removed some of that personality that made the original Diablo games stand out above the rest. Now let's talk story, because I know this is where some people tap out. Yes, Diablo 3's writing is a little cheesy. The villains' monologues, them constantly spawning in like a Star Wars force spirit, was a weird choice. Tyrael became a mopey mortal with the personality of a damp sponge. And yes, Deckard Cain gets unceremoniously removed from the game like a background NPC. The death of Deckard Cain was a huge mistake. It was a easy way for the developers to bring shock factor into the game. For many of us, he was the first NPC that we ever communicated with in a Diablo game. And the way they killed him off was absolutely awful. A huge mistake on their behalf. Our old friend has been replaced with his much more boring and annoying granddaughter. And honestly, there is really no character from this game that I ever hope to see again. But the story as a whole, it's not awful. There were some pretty fun moments actually. There's scale, there's ambition, and you still get to fight gods and demons. They also thought outside of the box this time around by taking the fight up to heaven itself, which adds a different level of threat than we have ever experienced before. In Diablo 1 and 2, it truly felt like we were the underdogs, trying our best to save the world. It was dark, gritty, and gory. But in Diablo 3, the character we play as almost feels like a god themselves. The character I played at, she would spit out lines saying how amazing she is. She was cocky, and it never once felt like we were going to fail at this mission. It never felt like we were going to die and leave the world in disarray. Is it as haunting or memorable as Diablo 1's Cathedral? Definitely not. But is it still incredibly cinematic, fast-paced, and engaging? Yes, absolutely. There is more mission variety. The maps, while still procedurally generated, are less confusing and frustrating to explore. The random events you encounter while looking for your main objective makes the world feel more real and lived in. And as a whole, it felt far less of a chore to navigate through the map. Visually, Diablo 3 made a bold choice, and it's still controversial today. It's stylized, it's clean, and it's definitely more readable. And while it does work in its own way, that old art style was sorely missed. Instead of murky caves, you get colourful cities. Instead of barely visible enemies in the dark, you get choreographed chaos. Yes, it sacrifices mood for clarity, but in a game where you're killing 200 enemies every second, sometimes that's not a bad thing. And honestly, some zones, they do get it right. The Fields of Misery, the High Heavens, the Realm of Fractured Fate. There is a sense of darkness, it's just more theatrical than oppressive. So where does Diablo 3 sit today? It's the awkward middle child. It's that child that rebelled, got kicked out of the house, then made a return, and they're suddenly a billionaire child entrepreneur. It has style, but it's different from the other kids. It's not the most hardcore, it's not the darkest, and it's definitely not the most nostalgic. But it's fun as hell, and sometimes that's enough. Diablo 3 might not wear the same robes as its ancestors, but under all of that flair and polish, the heart of the franchise is still there. You just have to look a little hard for it. But let me know what you think of Diablo 3, and should I play Diablo 4 and review that game too? I haven't played it. Until last week, I hadn't played Diablo 3. So I'm out of date on the Diablo franchise. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. Until next time, see ya.